Record and get this party going. All right, good afternoon, good morning, good evening maybe. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to MVP Office Hours. My name is Dale Ziegler. With me as always, we have Joy Shutters-Helbing and Mr. Squire Kirshner. Joy, Squire, y'all want to say hi super quick?
Hi, super quick.
Sure, Squire. Yeah, hi.
Raise your hand if you're a dad. Okay. So this is something that we do twice a month. This on the first and third Friday. We are here to help. We are here to answer questions. We're even here to ask questions. This is just meant to be an open dialogue. Before we dive into all of the other details and the ooey gooey chewy questions and everything, you can follow Office Hours at the Twitter handle here. You can follow the three of us individually here, and you can always get updated information at this little worldwide website right here. Over on the right is a listing of links to events going on in the Salesforce ecosystem, some hosted by Salesforce, some hosted by those of us in the community. You can always go to trailhead.salesforce.com/ probably insert your ISO English code here /calendar to get webinars, events that are both Salesforce and community led. The admin.salesforce.com all events page also always updated, as well as this bit.ly here. The upcoming Dreamin' events, unfortunately, this list is incredibly short right now just because of COVID. Haven't heard any updates yet on Dreamolay.
Actually, it just hit. Sorry to cut you off. They just canceled. It went out on Twitter this morning.
Which?
Dreamolay.
Gotcha. And I pulled Southeast Dreamin' off of there because they are actually pushed to next year, and at the same time next year. But yeah, they got pushed. So a lot of them are going virtual, as well as the Salesforce events. Trailhead X, for example, registration just opened up yesterday, day before yesterday. It's free, it's 1 day, but you can get all that information here at this shortened link. And then for local events, so I'm a local user group leader. I know Squire and Joy both are as well, Jackie as well. A lot of us have had to go virtual, but that's not a bad thing. We're still meeting, we're still bringing people together. To get information on those groups, you can go to any of these links here, as well as a list of the virtual meetups. That's actually the beauty of having had to go virtual, is that now you have the opportunity to go join meetings in other cities, you know, in your region, within the country, around the world, whatever works for you. There's the only barrier is an internet connection. So definitely go check out what's going on, not only at your local group if you haven't gotten connected, but any of the others as well. We're a very open community, and so nobody should get turned away at the door. You should be able to join if you want. So global office hours, it's not just us here in the US, but there's also an EMEA as well as Portuguese. I don't see Carlos on here to speak to it, but Carlos Sequeira, he's based in Tampa, I believe, but he is a native Portuguese speaker. You do not need to speak Portuguese to take part in this. He does a phenomenal job of translating English to Portuguese and back again. Ultimately, what he's trying to do is help our friends and our partners and our colleagues in Brazil and other Portuguese-speaking countries with their Salesforce questions and issues. No different than what we're about to do here. He does all the translating, and it's a phenomenal opportunity. They meet on the last Thursday of the month, just as EMEA. And again, you can go to mvpofficehours.info to get more detailed information and register and have an opportunity to help out. So what are we? What are we doing here? How do we do it? Like I said earlier, we meet on the first and third Friday of the month. So our next call is going to be in 2 weeks on June 19th. Same bat time, same bat channel, 2 Eastern. Some call it 11 Pacific, others call it 1 Central, and we love Mountain, so 10 o'clock there. It's an open Q&A. All we ask is if you want to join, go register so that we know who's on the call. We keep all of our recordings in YouTube, so that's one thing to call out right now. We are recording. So if you do not consent to being recorded, please hop off and catch the recording later. But you can catch us at any of these resources here out in the Salesforce community, Twitter or YouTube, as well as our hashtags that we're searching for. Everyone gets to participate. You don't have to be an MVP to answer. We'll even have MVPs asking the questions. This is all of us coming to a room to help each other. We just ask that when you're not speaking, please just go on mute. Conference call etiquette. We've been doing this for a while now. And if we hear any background noise and you don't realize you're the problem, we can go ahead and mute you for you. We may just forget to unmute you. So take muting into your own hands, please. To ask questions, there should be a raise your hand feature there in your Zoom window. And if you don't want to speak up, that's fine. Keep your hand raised in there. We also have the Zoom chat feature that Join Squire are looking at for questions. If you do speak up, just announce yourself. We have the chat to share links, post other resources, and we do have screen share capabilities. Again, because we are recording, please, if at all possible, do not show us your production environment. Don't show us any real data. If you can show us in a dev org or in a sandbox or something with dummy data, whatever, production is our last option because this will be up on YouTube here, hopefully by the end of the day, forever and always, because, well, that's how the internet works. So who are our MVPs in the room? Besides myself, Joy, Squire, and Jackie. Let's see. Who else we got? Raise your hand. Because admittedly, I don't keep up with the whole list. We have a good crew today, so welcome everyone.
You've got Gina on that line also, Gina Marquez.
Gina, hello, hello, hello. All right. So before we dive in to whatever questions you might have, we also do want to call out that in between calls, we have the MVP Office Hours Success Group that is a great opportunity to post your questions and people are answering. Like this thread here, this was actually going on for a couple of weeks from, I'm going to butcher the name, but Anurag, and our old friend Stu was jumping in to help. And I think this actually came up on the last call as well, and we had a number of people helping. But this is a public channel within the Success community that you can go join. It's not a request to join. I'd say you just join, post your questions in there, jump in and answer questions that you may know the answers to. And we are trying to also make sure we don't leave any questions unanswered. There weren't any new questions put in here, but I just wanted to call the group out. And so with that, I'm gonna shut up, and who's got questions? Hi, Marty. Go for it.
Oh, I won't be shy. So first, last time, thank you, the person who suggested my issue of doing a lookup from one custom object to another that worked with a process builder and a flow. Thank you, everybody. And my question today, just to see if anyone has run into this, I have a client who is experiencing what I'll call phantom duplicate contacts being created, meaning they have not done anything with a certain contact. They're connected with Einstein Activity Capture and Inbox, and one user, only one, is having duplicate contacts created magically. Has anybody seen this? I'll take that.
There's always that special one.
Yeah.
Question for you. Hi, this is Pat. So
Hi.
on the duplicates, are they created at the same time the original is, or is it happening later?
No. Good question. No, original was created in some instances a year or two ago. They don't even know who it is. Some cases it has an unknown as a last name because it was somebody created it a long time ago. And it's creating duplicate contacts at different points in time in the last 2 weeks.
And who does it show is creating it? Is it
this one user?
And it's a duplicate based on what? Is it on email address? Is it on name? Is it some combination of things?
I believe in most cases it's email address, because there's almost no, or a phone number, because there's almost no other data. And the one person's Salesforce support suggested we take them out of the original Einstein activity capture configuration, reset them up as their own configuration, which I did last Friday, and then went back to look at, all right, how many duplicate contacts are there? And lo and behold, only for this one user, it has created about 100 duplicate contacts. Not
Hey.
100 total of different, maybe 20 different contacts.
Marty, did this user use the Outlook add-in previously?
Yes,
Are they still currently syncing with the Outlook add-in?
yes.
Aha.
And that's-
I'm
that
just
was-
one.
Go ahead.
Right, I'm wondering what the directional rules are with that. So you might want to just check on that and see how they're set up, and then have them uninstall that add-in and try and kind of restart that process.
Oh, the add-in itself.
Yeah, I mean, there's been updates to that add-in, and I know when my former company had worked on this a little bit, we struggled with some similar issues, but they didn't quite get this out of hand. But we like uninstalled like everything and like restarted the whole process with the user and kind of went after it. And I wish I'd taken better notes, but I did not.
Right.
It was more of a like trying to like whack-a-mole. But check those settings, and because if their contacts are syncing from Outlook, also that could be creating issues.
Yep. Okay, thank you. That's a good suggestion. I'll have them. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Or at the bare minimum, just turn off the syncing functionality on the add-in just for a time being and see what lights up, because I would agree. If there's two-way syncing going on, it's very likely that the rules on the plugin are checking for like my contacts, and then the rules on NBA are testing against the platform. You probably are seeing some overlap.
Right. So it's definitely not two-way syncing. I know that. But the other thing that's interesting, in my opinion, is it's contacts that they haven't touched. I mean, I could see if they had sent somebody an email or someone had sent them an email in the last week, but it's contacts that, no, none of the above is true.
But if there's any kind of persistent, so taking a step back, the Outlook piece that Joy mentioned and Einstein, pretty sure those two aren't actually working together. They're working independently of each other.
Yep.
Yeah, and so they're not respecting each other's rules and whatever. And so if depending on, so you said it's not bi-directional sync, right?
Correct.
Y'all are laughing at my son walking in the background.
Well, you stopped talking. You stopped talking to it. You like froze. You're like,
yeah. If an update is made to one side or the other, that could also be what's triggering something happening. Like if they may not have done anything with the contact in Salesforce, but if they updated something on the Outlook contact record and that triggers a sync, that may then lead to something of creating a new record, or, I mean, it's any number of things, but
Okay.
multiple touch points
Well-
already is going to exponentialize the number of possibilities.
because the Einstein activity goes back and mines some stuff. So it's not, it
Yep.
could be in the past. I just don't remember how far back it goes back looking and mining the Outlook. So
Okay.
good luck, Marty.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to have them undo the Outlook.
If I could just throw one other thing out there too. So I
Sure.
believe that the Outlook plugin is now officially no longer supported or being updated. Wasn't that just recent?
Well, the plugin, the add-in, like there's, whatever you want to call it, there's all different. The old one isn't supported anymore, but there is that add-in, I thought, that was still being supported.
The Salesforce for Outlook add-in. I just want to make sure. I mean, on top of having two applications fighting against each other, if one's not even supported anymore, it's a great opportunity now to sunset it.
Mhm.
So just a lot of good conversation regardless of the root cause. So
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And Marty, I love the adventures that we get to vicariously like live through you to have. I want a book. Like next time, whenever we get to have Dreamforce, I want to see you having published a book and it's available for sale at Dreamforce. I will be the first to champion that.
Thank you. I'm not sure if that's good or bad.
No, that's very good. That's very
But
good. You're coming up with some. No, I mean it. I mean it.
Live my life.
No. I mean it. Like you have some very critical challenges that I think a lot of people are facing. They don't know where to begin to ask, and so I mean it all in a good way. I honestly, honest to God, do. It's.
Thank you. Because we're being recorded, I won't say anything that I might want to say. But
No.
this is a good forum. I love it. Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. All right, I see some other hands raised. Who do we want to go with next? Bruno, I think I saw yours come up.
Hi everyone, happy Friday.
Hello.
Hello.
Friday.
I like this forum too. Thanks so much for your help and such. I don't think my question is going to take very long. It's more of a general one. I have a need for essentially when we have accounts that are turning into customers, there's a request to have an integration into the ERP and to sort of collect a bunch of stuff, I guess, on new customers. And so the identification I've heard so far is a form that would sort of be sent out, have some fields filled in, I think ideally collected back into Salesforce, and then, you know, ultimately integrated back into the ERP. So one thing I found, which is fantastic, I don't know if everybody's heard about it, just came out in March. It's called Webhook, and it allows you to sort of use Process Builder to sort of send stuff, you know, to another org with RESTful API. Amazing. So I got that working, but now all of a sudden there's this need to do these forms. And I'm thinking FormStack, and if they just want signatures, DocuSign, but I thought I'd post the group here and just see if there's anything else that I haven't thought of. Another thing is if we want to build internally, I know we could probably use sites and use some fields that way, but just getting a sense, if you don't mind, what other tools I might be needing to consider here. That makes sense? Did you hear me?
It does. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I'll just throw out there a couple things that we're doing in a kind of similar, but I don't want to overlap too much. Yeah. We are evaluating utilizing a guest community and sending invites from Salesforce to someone to log in and complete information. Then that data is actually in Salesforce and we can act on it and fire it back out the door.
Yep, I forgot to mention that one. That's good, but it certainly comes at a cost, right? A little more expensive.
Again, it's negligible compared to something like a DocuSign or a FormStack implementation, but negligible. It's not bad because it's a guest license.
Yeah,
there's a different pricing model. I mean, obviously your AE can work with that.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. I wasn't aware. Okay, that's one good thing. Thank you.
And we've also looked at utilizing Salesforce Survey, which is a little bit pricier, but you have a lot more flexibility about who gets it and how they respond to it. I would do a deep dive on that to see if it even applies, but those are the things we tried for a similar conversation.
Surveys, yeah, that might work. Like something like even get feedback, would that be an option? Like one of those?
Anything that integrates with the platform, we wanted to use Salesforce Survey specifically because it is already integrated, and again, we could take action on them as they return.
Okay.
Yeah. Using get feedback as an example, though, I mean, that's what Salesforce uses for anything that you see, like, post Dreamforce session, all of that. So if that lends any credibility as you're weighing your options, get feedback's what they go with, and they white label it.
Excellent. So I've used other survey tools as well. I haven't done get feedback, but the understanding is you post, they collect information, then you can store it anywhere on your account record, on another custom object, whatever, right? Perfect. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
All right. Let's go with Richard next.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a client or a customer who is getting a data feed of the world from a PBM, a insurer, who wants them to create funding for specific patients who can't afford their medicine. And so what I've done is I've created the lead, right? Sticking with plain vanilla Salesforce, I've taken the lead and I'm importing everything I can into the lead. Now, here's the question. There's an opportunity for a patient to have more than one drug needing funding. So I've created a custom object called funding request that attaches to the opportunity that holds all these drugs. Now, when I convert the lead into account, opportunity, and contact, what I'd really like to do is have a little out to go ahead and create these funding requests and attach them to the opportunity. Have you heard of anything that would like intercept the lead conversion process and then give you an opportunity to go ahead and do a flow or anything like that?
No, but the tools are there. So if you think about what the native lead conversion process is, and you have the option, account, contact, opportunity, the is converted function is super duper protected that I think only code can break into, and even then it needs a few Fort Knox passwords to do so. But what you could potentially do is when that opportunity is created, if you're already talking about going into automation like process builder flow, you'd have to go into flow because you're going to have to navigate across a few objects. If you're able to find part of that conversion process is the lead knows what it was converted to. It knows what account it was converted to, what contact it was converted to, what opportunity it was converted to. So if you can find where that new opportunity ID equals the converted opportunity ID on lead, leverage that and start to glean information, you can kind of start to carry it under and over the conversion wall to then start to attach those records depending on where your information is. Now, this is where I'm going to stop talking and throw it over to a developer or to a Squire or whatever who understands the order of operations much better than I do to know if that's in the realm of possible for what's getting committed to the database and when.
Yeah.
Because that's really the big piece is when does lead conversion actually happen in that 20 some odd step order of operations.
Right.
Yeah, and it just grew a little bit too. I was just going to look it up really quick because I believe that it still wouldn't fire until commit, which is probably okay if you were going to have a flow on fire on save after like the opportunity is created. But I'm going to do a quick dig while we're talking and see if I can give you that answer before we're done.
Gotcha. Yeah, because like I'm in the middle of doing the whole conversion manually in Flow, and it's so tedious because I don't know the application that well. So I'm going back to the lead and looking up what the lead fields are, and then I'm going to the opportunity and seeing how I can map them in opportunity and contact and account and what belongs where. And yeah, I mean, if it's really cumbersome, I'm just going to go ahead and plow through this this manual, create 4 different object flow, and just leave it at that. But I was just wondering if there was an easier way.
I mean, I think from a best practice standpoint, you're going to want to try and let Salesforce do what it does with lead conversions. I mean, with any core functionality that they give you, they have a very specific set of reasons as to why they do it the way that they do. If a lead is converted, you can then control visibility to that lead once it's converted, whether either it's hidden and you're redirected to here's your account contact opportunity, or you keep it open and you can't do anything with it. But there's the downsides of like what you're trying to do of because you have this other process, you do have to like manually convert it, which isn't officially converted. You do have to look at the overall, what are you trying to accomplish in Salesforce? Because if lead conversion is something that you're tracking, you lose that when you manually convert, because Salesforce's native campaigns and all that kind of stuff are looking for where is converted. So it's a trade-off. If there's a way, if the order of operations allows you to leverage the is converted field as a decision point, I think that's going to simplify things for you considerably and still respect the integrity of what Salesforce is trying to let you do with all of your objects and data.
Well, I got you. Thanks. I appreciate that advice. I'm going to give that a try.
Richard, Gina asked a really good question. So these things, these drug records, I'm sure that's a terrible way of saying that, but
Yeah.
these child records you're creating on the opportunity, where do they originate?
Okay.
Are they records on the lead already?
So there's literally a CSV file that's coming in from them, and they've said, we'll send you anything you want. And so my boss, the guy I'm working for, said, oh, well, just send us everything, you know? And so my idea was to protect them from having to interact with leads at all. So some of the drugs that are requested do not fall into the sphere of what this company deals with. So we want to winnow those out first, create leads out of the rest, the ones that we can deal with, and then just mass convert them into account contact opportunity. So each lead record, and I put that in quotes, is going to have one drug associated with it. So it's literally, please fund this patient for this drug. Then the next one that comes in, I check to say, hey, was an account created for this patient already? If so, just load the next drug. If not, load everything and then load the next drug. You see what I'm saying? So that's the flow process that I came up with.
Well, yeah, okay. So it makes me a little nervous because if every lead is individual, I'm not sure how the convert's going to know to kind of merge these. You know, you'd get like the dupe match.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
So I guess I should back up. Are you trying to make the lead conversion automated because perhaps there's many, or is it the traditional, I'm on a lead, I want to convert it, so you hit the button, or not even, we know it's not the traditional lead conversion, obviously, but what is getting you from a lead to an opportunity? Is it automation with a bunch of stuff in between, or is a user clicking a button from lead to make it happen?
So I actually haven't decided yet. It may be a button. I think that would be the easiest. Or there may be validation rules in the lead to say, well, if this field, and this field are present, that's all I need to create an opportunity. So when you hit save, I can just go ahead and fire off that flow. But again, there's only certain fields in the lead that belong in the opportunity. And then most of the data is going to go into these funding requests. So the trick really is to figure out in the flow what the opportunity ID is, and then attach that to the funding request. And then I'm done. But it's a slog because each and every field has to be mapped individually.
Right. Squire, what conversation do you have going here in the chat with Derek on this? Or Derek, if you're able to unmute, because you're also next in line to ask a question. What do you want to speak to on that? That might be helpful.
Yeah, this is Derek. I don't know if it's the same. We have a process where we have some automation for a trial request for a customer. And the idea is that we interface our product trial spin-up process with Salesforce. So someone goes to a form, they get created as a lead, and we spin up some automation. And then the idea is that after that lead is converted, we use the asset record to track our products. And what we do then is after that lead is converted, because for the time being on an asset, there's a requirement that there's I believe an account record related. So we just have this general holding account so that we can meet that requirement. So then what we do is 15 minutes after a lead is converted, we have a process that goes and finds those converted leads that has an asset related to it, and we'll update that asset to be on the new account that was created out of that lead conversion. I don't know if that's the same idea. I think I might be missing some steps here, but I just wanted to bring up the fact that we use that process with a scheduled job that runs every 15 minutes to move related data or use data from that lead to update a related opportunity or an account.
And Derek, that's still allowing you to use the native conversion process?
Yep. Yeah. So a salesperson, so the idea is that that lead gets assigned to a salesperson, does their normal lead process, to follow up with the customer and say, hey, how's the trial going? How's this stuff doing? And if they move forward and convert that lead, after that's converted, I think we have a custom field on the lead that just says assets moved or something like that. And if this related asset field is populated and that box is unchecked and the status is converted, we look for those leads and then move that asset over to the newly created account out of that conversion process. If that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah, adding a field to the lead makes sense, and then going back and checking it. I like it. All right. Thank you, guys.
Richard, I would offer, while this conversation was probably more useful than anything, I'd link you to, there's a couple of really good blog posts out there about the lead conversion process and ways to deal with it. One by Doug Ayers, who I would trust with my Salesforce life. So I would definitely do a little bit of Google searching and see if you can nail something that would help. I'll post the link that I found, but there's a lot of good info out there from some really smart people.
Cool. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, so Derek, keeping you on the mic here, and I saw you posted in the group as well.
I did. Hopefully I have enough, my mind wrapped around this ask, but we have a process where when, kind of actually going back to the opportunity record, when an opportunity closes, obviously the salesperson owns the opportunity. And at that point, customer now goes from a prospect to an actual customer. And we want to assign said account to a proper customer success specialist on the team. And in the past, we've had like a one-to-many model where I'm a customer success agent and I have 500, 700 accounts that I manage. One of the asks that I've had recently is to say, kind of around a freemium model where there's just this pool of accounts and nobody really owns it. And we don't want to assign it to, myself or somebody. We just want it to be this dummy user that we set up, and it's kind of a pooled account model is what we're getting at. As I started to research it a little bit, came across the link that I posted in that answer there around the membership data SKU criteria, where you should never have more than 10,000, I think, accounts is what I remember, tied to a specific user, because if you do, that can start to have some inherent system slowness and stuff like that. So wanted to come to this group to see if A, anybody's ever run into this, B, if you have, what options have you used to make sure that you don't slow down the system or cause issues with bulk updates and things like that.
I guess so is the question. I feel like I've heard that the 10,000-ish number, like you shouldn't exceed that, but is that as an active running, like a person owning it, or is that in general? Because like I know in a past life we had the dummy user, the admin user for all the accounts that weren't being mined by a real person. Those accounts were so small and had so little activity that we actually never came across somebody logging in trying to access to get my or anything happening as them. So I'm asking that out of naive curiosity.
We likely will have, and if I'm answering this incorrectly, feel free to stop me. But there's always going to be updates, or those are active accounts that we will be doing things for. So the idea is that we have pool user one, let's call it, owns, let's say it's 150,000 accounts if we don't, do that limitation. And the idea is that one of those customers submits a case, we see that it's a pooled, owned by that pooled user, and then we have a group of customer success agents that we want to route that case to based on that data point. And there may be processes that, run nightly, weekly, or something like that, that are calculating some fields on that account for other reporting that the sales or retention teams might be using. So there could be mass updates on the account, and as what I'm reading is those mass updates could cause system slowness, or sharing role changes could cause system slowness when you have one user owning more than 10,000 accounts, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Right, I guess, and again, my naive question is that are they saying that because it's a result of a user owning that many accounts, or is it specifically a person who is a user doing something deliberately to all of those accounts?
And maybe I need to reread it, but the way I read it was that if a user owns that many accounts, so if a specific Salesforce user is tied to 10,000 accounts, there can be that issue. But maybe I need to reread it based on your question. That's a good point.
Yeah, I would say definitely dive in a little bit deeper, that if you are the user and you're trying to do something to your 10,000 accounts, that might be it. But no, I think that'd be good to flush out.
If I can do it a little bit, and where the skew comes in is because of sharing recalculation. So the real concern is things like, I'm the bottom of a 15-person hierarchy and I own 10,000 accounts. The share upwards or across teams can be where the skew hits. Ownership itself is not the challenge. It's the resulting impact to the security modeling. There's a pretty good series of articles that Greg Cook wrote about data skew, and usually what it has to do with things like you basically have cobbled together, not you personally, sorry, an organization cobbles together effectively a territory management model without using territory management. And so now you have tons of records being owned at the wrong tier of sharing, and you've got lots of sharing recalculations. And so even the most minor change, like say changing a parent firm, could generate a huge swath of recalcs, which can then slow you down. But without really knowing what your role hierarchy or your sharing model is, you may not have any skew at all.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm a little bit concerned of. Is I do know I need to jump into my sharing rules a little bit more and understand that a little bit better, because that is the problem that I see, is that we don't use the native territory management tools, and it's all customly managed and stuff like that today. So that's where my bigger concern is, that every 6 months when we go and mass update all of our territory assignments on our accounts, that's all of a sudden going to trigger this data skew issue if we have one user that owns a large amount of accounts.
And I would also call into the red flag of data skew is pretty hard to avoid. But if you tear it down and really understand what that skew could be, so I'll give you another example. So a firm I was at a couple years ago, we managed account records for energy companies. So tens of millions of contact records, and that model was driven through a parent sharing model. And when we looked at potentially letting each account be owned by a user, and that a user might own 500,000 contacts, we jumped in that data skew conversation. Then we realized that the sharing model was flat, and so there was no sharing requirement, and by definition the role hierarchy kicked it off, and we didn't see an actual impact. So I guess underlying is don't assume it's going to be bad. Really do the math, break down what the impact would be, and do a full assessment and say, we're going to recalculate 10,000 records. That's not going to hurt us. Or we're going to recalculate 100 million records. Okay, we got to do that off cycle on a Sunday morning and give it time to work. You know, that's just part of that work.
Okay, good to
Well,
know.
and
Thank you.
well, and not only from a processing horsepower standpoint, but just from a data standpoint, because every single record on every single object, no matter if it's first class, a sharing object, count team, whatever, they're all 2 KB toward your data storage, and that adds up super fast when you start getting the permutations of what records are shared with who. So yep, when to do it, but also how much space is it going to take up in the end.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we had Jim up next, Jim Cripe.
Hello, folks. TGIF.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, on the lead convert thing, we ran into something similar to that, and there's code, a class called lead convert, database lead convert, that is what we ended up doing. We would do our own convert using that library, and then we would do our own opportunity creation after the lead convert, because we had the lead handle right there, lead ID, and access to all, all the converted leads and so on. So it was the solution we ended up with. If that helps. The problem I'm having right now, and I just ran into it this morning, is I have a flow that has to do some lookups and updates to, it's a flow auto task that, or process builder flow that has to do some updates out of tasks. So I do a call to a flow that does the manipulations and updates the task, but I need it to call or to do the next step, and I haven't been able to get the, you can set your process builder flow to continue on to the next step after it gets done, and it's not doing it. So I was wondering if anybody else has experienced that and has any tricks. I was about to try recursion, but I thought I would throw that out to the group here.
Are you possibly able to share your screen with us?
Sure.
Let me find Zoom in amongst the mess of windows on my other. Where'd you go? So that I can stop sharing. There, it's right there in front of me. I'm smart.
I'll share my screen. So here is the immediate. To do a refresh and open it up. It showed it to me now. I decided it has to refresh it. So we have to. What this is for is we have a Vonage phone system, and because of the way the Vonage phone system does its order of operations, a task that is for a phone call against a lead or an opportunity can be created disconnected from the lead or opportunity. So I need to connect up the who ID, and we also have a requirement that no phone numbers will ever appear in subject lines, and Vonage by default puts phone numbers in subject lines. So I have this flow out here that does the deeds for me, and it's quite a busy flow because I have to see if there's a what ID and try and find out if there's a contact. What we do is we replace the phone number with the leader contact's name. So instead of outbound call to a phone number, it'll say outbound call to and the leader contact's name. So it waterfalls through this basically. Do we have a what ID? Try and get the contact's name and who IDs from the contact. If not, then we'll go through and try to look up the contact through the phone number. This is fun too. We have several phone fields on our lead and contact, and Get Records does not support or, no custom logic. It's all and. So we have to do an or. So I found this fun custom object called execute SQL Apex action object. It's a custom Apex object action, and you can feed it your SOQL query and have that in a formula. But once this all gets done, it does its deed. It decides whether or not there had an actual update. It updates the or the task subject and who ID. That flow, evaluate mixed criteria, and some other goodness based on the call dispositions and what to do. So I'm finding that this evaluate next criteria does not work. In this case, I see the flow activity in the debug logs, but nothing ever gets back to the next step in the process builder flow. I think I'm pushing the envelope too much with Salesforce, and I may not be able to do this.
I don't think you're pushing the envelope. I think it comes back to order of operations and what gets committed when. So I need to move to a bigger screen here so I can. So your second node there, subject not outbound.
Yeah.
So
basically what I want to do here is I want to, all these other criteria have to do with outbound calls. So if we don't have outbound calls, rather than putting subject equals outbound call on each of these criteria, I basically made this one my exit.
So let me make sure though, I want to make sure that maybe this isn't it. Is there anything from the flow that happens in that first decision node that you're trying to get to impact any of the downstream decision nodes in the process builder?
Well,
like, are you trying to go process builder, flow, process builder as a result of what's in the flow?
No, it just calls, the process builder calls out to the flow, and then it's supposed to come back. There is another flow out there that I need to work on combining. The best practice, of course, is to have one flow per object. So I've got to do some refactoring there, but.
Right. I was just trying to make sure that like you weren't expecting the process builder to evaluate that first node, go into the flow, have the flow do something, and then as a result of that flow, then go evaluate next criteria to then look at the decision node, the next decision node in the process builder.
Well, it does update the subject. So that is one of the operations that this call Apex does. So does that, once you do an update on a record in a flow, does that disqualify the rest of the criteria from being evaluated?
It's not a yes, not a no, but what's happening here in the process builder, and I see Squire wanting to jump in, I'm gonna beat you to this one, man.
All you.
Is so when you're in the process builder, it's taking whatever the record looked like when the user tried to hit save. Whatever the world looked like at that point. So it's basically frozen a snapshot of what the user intended to have happen at that point. It's not going to take into consideration any flows, any updates, any Apex callouts, anything that you have in the process builder.
That's fine, because what I'm doing is only basically removing or replacing the phone number on the subject line is what the code does out here. It's still going to be the same outbound call. And so it doesn't matter there, just so long as it still has access to that task and the fact that I've updated the task in the process builder flow doesn't disqualify the rest of the criteria from being evaluated. Those are the two things I'm thinking might be the stoppers.
Yeah, because I think what you may also just be up against in general is there is a general rule of thumb along with only one process builder per object. There's also a rule of one automation type per object.
Well, the rest of these criteria down here do not work on the task. They work on the lead that's associated with the task.
So that right there, okay, click on the callable node then.
Oh yeah, we do have the Who ID being attached to that task, and that's important for these operations too. That it needs to fill in if it's missing the Who ID, it needs to have the Who ID added. So.
But then, are you saying you're leveraging lead information if it is a lead for the process builder to do something?
No, what's supposed to happen is we do updates. And this one happens to be another flow that if it's callable, we set a next call time.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay.
You know, that kind of thing, but it's set on the lead. It's not set on the task.
Got it. I mean, there's a piece of me that kind of wants to say, I think once you started in Process Builder and went to Flow, you kind of need to live in Flow from there. I think hopping back to Process Builder might be confusing Salesforce, honestly.
Yeah, and it's getting to the point where I've got so much logic between two different places, it's going to be a real pain to have to jump back and forth. So I might as well put it in one technology.
And
layer.
I would also say if you do go down that path of bigger flow, is make modular flows and have those call each other.
Subflows. Yeah, definitely. I can do subflows for each of these criteria here and pop those off. Well, thanks for the advice. I'll take that and run.
Yeah, it's not probably the news you were looking for, but I think that is what's going to help get you out of this.
Well, it's just the contractor from Vonage set this monster up, and I didn't want to work on it, so I started doing the process builder flows because I needed to do the lead manipulation against the task. But in this first operation, I do have to update the task, so it'd be very good if I can just keep it in one execution scope, so to speak, and make it all work together.
So what I would so speaking as a consultant now, take it or leave it, what I would recommend is I wouldn't even create a new version of this. I would start just a brand new fresh process builder. Don't touch what they built, so that you do, and obviously all in a sandbox, but if it ever came to you needing to push back to Vonage or whoever to say, hey, this doesn't work, what you don't want to necessarily do is ruin the integrity of what they built, so that you can push it back to them and say, this didn't work. I rebuilt it this way and it did work. This is what I needed. So thanks, but no thanks. Because even creating a new version might muddy things up a little bit. Just start with a fresh piece of paper to get it the way that you need it to be, and then push that back to Vonage or whoever and say, okay, no, this didn't work. Thanks.
Yeah, and what's fun in here too is they have scheduled stuff going on so that the call gets done, and then he gives time for the user to get done updating the lead, and then they update the lead through this process builder flow through the flow activity. So it's fun stuff.
Oh yeah.
cross-platform and timings and just
right. Yeah. I would say start fresh and go. Let the process builder wake it up. Build some subflows and go from there.
Yeah, and I can do timed activities and process builder as well. So
right. Okay.
Or in flows too. So thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Rob, to answer your question, Salesforce doesn't restrict you to one type per object. It's when you get into when triggers happen versus when process builders happen versus when flows versus workflows. It's because they kind of happen all over the map of order of operations. It's best to consolidate it into one form so that you're not having to worry about order of operations. That's what my comment meant.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Dale.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got time for one more. Anu, you had your hand raised and you sent us a link. So if you start asking, and I will get this link popped up.
Sure. Actually, that link was for your comment earlier for the best practices. My question is something else. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Great. Yeah, I have something very simple. I just want to share my screen. It's related to reporting. So this.
Yep, go for it.
One sec. Okay. Yeah, pretty simple thing. I have a report that I have to do for the executives, which has opportunities, close-won opportunities, not close, it's all opportunities right now in the sum of all the amounts. And I have to compare it against an annual sales goal. So I have my opportunities, which are linked through a lookup to a contact. So sales rep A and sales rep B are my contacts, which have an annual sales goal. And I just have to do some sort of a comparison between all the opportunities sum against the goal and put a percentage. The problem, and there could be other ways to do it. This is the best approach I chose. But the problem I'm having is when I put it on a report format, it does give me the average. And the executives don't like to see it. So when I put this on a dashboard, it still gives me the average. Is there a way to get rid of this and make this cleaner and just have annual sales goal and not show the average, but instead the total annual sales goal?
So basically a custom header and not an average at the grand total row, right? Is that kind of the two things you're asking for?
So, I mean, if I don't have to do the average, I mean, on my report, if I'm showing this, I have to choose something out of an average, some max or min on the average sales.
Yep, you're right. I just want to make sure I understand your question. So yeah, so you would like to be able to customize the column header, and then in theory have the total of sales goals. But if you do the total of sales goals, you're going to get a sum of every one of the reps' opportunities in that column, right?
Correct.
Right.
So I mean, they should show a total of 3 million instead of one. Right now, it's showing the average.
Sure. Are you calculating percent to goal at the opportunity based on that relationship?
Correct. So the annual sales goal also rolls up from the contact to the every opportunity.
Sorry, what I'm asking is, so in theory, let's say the contact's annual sales goal is $1 million. If you calculate that at the opportunity tier specifically, each opportunity is going to have an incremental amount of percentage, but then you could sum those percentages to get an actual percentage. And then you're really just summing the amounts and the goals and the percentages rather than calculating at the report level. I don't know if I'm making sense there.
Maybe I'm not understanding.
So for instance, would you mind opening up Op1?
Yes. So yeah, I open up the Op1 and I also open up the sales rep A.
Okay.
The sales rep A is a contact, which just has a average and just the annual sales goal as a field.
Mm-hmm.
Right here, 1 million.
Yep.
And the opportunity one is linked to sales rep. I hope, yeah, it's a sales rep A.
Yep.
And I'm also, so this is a formula field which I'm pulling up from the contact as an annual sales goal.
Okay.
And
so
then showing in the report. Yep.
So if you stay on this page, sorry.
Oh, switch. Yep.
So if you do the calculation of the percentage of my goal that this opportunity specifically is giving and store it at the opportunity,
mm-hmm.
so you're going to get like, 0.1%, say. But you can then add up all the percentages for every opportunity and get the actual total without having to do an average number. You can also then reverse that. Like, so basically what you're doing is you're trying to aggregate some records, but not all the records. So if you can find a way to simulate the actual data being stored at the opportunity and then sum all the opportunities, you'll have the numbers you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm getting it now.
Dale, I feel like you were going to say something. I was catching your head.
Well, I was trying to understand the relationship of these objects. I mean, is it so sales rep is a contact, yes?
Correct.
And opportunity is looking up to contact, or is this using opportunity contact role?
No, it's looking up to a contact.
So I think kind of the same to what Squire was saying. You could do take this opportunity as X%. Rather than bringing down, you're taking the contact sales goal through a formula field and you're putting it on every single opportunity.
Correct.
So like that million is on every single opportunity. Why not, maybe Squire, this is what you were saying, do math of this opportunities amount divided by the contact sales goal, or in a report, say group by the contact, which you're doing, with the opportunity amounts, and then an inline, like an inline, or the row level formula. Is that potentially possible? And that might be what you were saying, Squire.
Kind of. I just didn't do a very good job. But yeah, that once you get a point where this is one of the limitations of Salesforce reporting, right? It's record level reporting, not column level reporting. So you have to say, I need to add up that opportunity one row across all the columns in some way. But if you make that opportunity actually have the granular data value, then when you add them all up, you don't have to do aggregations. They do the math for you. Similar, we did a similar thing with annualization. So instead of trying to calculate the current annualization of all opportunities, we calculated what that one opportunity's annualized value was. And then when we sum those up, we get the annualization of everything without having to aggregate at sales rep and then at opportunity, which it sounds like what you're doing.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're saying pretty much have another formula field here and calculate the percentage at this level, correct? At the opportunity level.
Potentially, yeah. And I think the row level formulas that Dale was referencing would come into play then too, because now you can start doing row level reaggregation to then generate that other number that you don't have.
Okay, will I still be able to show the annual sales goals though? Compared, if I remove the details, will I still be able to show some of all the opportunities against the actual annual sales goal, which is referencing from the contact?
So what you'd be getting then is that average annual sales goal record, or that average number. You wouldn't use that to calculate your percentage. It would be a sum percentage. So like the third column would just be an add of all of the individual percentages. The average annual goal, let's see, that's sitting at the upper tier. So the only way to do that math-wise would be to somehow have it know how many opportunities to divide it by. That's probably not going to be great. I'm trying to think, how would we sneak up on that, Dale? Or Joy. Joy, you've written 1 billion reports.
I have, but I'm learning from this scenario for sure.
I mean, I think in this example, so your sales rep A, so if your custom report type is contacts with opportunities, that's the first step. You got your sales rep there in your first column. You then have your contact sales goal as your second column, and then you get into the opportunity detail.
Yeah, so like basically grouped by the annual sales goal, even though there's only going to be one record, you'll get a row. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and it becomes, if I'm thinking of Lightning reports correctly, I might not be, but you'd have that single instance of sales rep A, their goal is $1 million, and then however many opportunities below it to then also either do a row level formula or potentially a different report formula, but then it still allows you to say sales rep's A goal is $1 million. Sales rep A had 5 opportunities that were, I don't know, for safety's sake, 70,000 each to get you to that 350. And each of the the 50,000 out of a million is what, 5%, or is 1/7 of the total achieved, whatever math you need to do, but it still allows you to say, I know my contact and their goal, and here's their supporting stuff.
Okay. So basically just create a new report type instead of just using opportunities, use a contact with opportunities report type.
I'm thinking that's where you need to go, because yeah, Salesforce is kind of limiting. It's going to force you to say, if you say average, it's going to force the word average on there, and no executive wants to see that because it doesn't make sense. And then your grand total, yeah, every sales rep's actually different. Their average isn't 1.5 because it could be a variable number of opportunities that make that average, and. So if you separate the objects out from a report type standpoint, you get more maneuverability in how you report and what you report.
Okay. I'll give that a try and maybe post it on the community.
Please do. We'd love to see what you come up with.
Yeah, and I believe Stu was helping you out with something else a few weeks ago. So just as proof of concept that we are checking that and trying to move the questions along. So whatever you need, throw it out there.
Oh yeah, I don't know if Stu is here today, but I really want to thank him. That solution really did work for my. I mean, it was not the best solution, but they took it. My users took it.
Good. Stu is one of the best peoples I've ever had the opportunity of meeting, and that's just what he does. So glad that he was able to help.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. I think we're already over time, so I'm good. Thank you all.
No worries. Yep, we are over time. Thank you, everybody. As we mentioned, the office hours group is always out there for any questions you may have, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. I hope you're all staying safe with all the weird things that 2020 is throwing at us, and just be well. This is always a safe, open place for anything, not just Salesforce stuff. So we're all here for each other. Let's keep taking care of each other. Be well, and we'll be back on this in 2 weeks. So thank you, Squire. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, everybody. See ya.
Virtual high fives for everybody.
Thanks, folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jim.